Thank you for taking some time to check things out here on the channel. Um, we're going to do 2 videos, possibly 3. I don't want to go too long on these, but we're going to do at least 2 videos on the great alto saxophone player Phil Woods. Thank you again for taking some time to be here. And, hope maybe we can open your eyes up to Phil if you don't know too much about Phil. And if you do, maybe there'll be some items here that maybe you haven't heard or might have some interest in. Well, thank you again for being here. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit the like button. I guess that helps with these algorithms here on YouTube, but thank you for taking some time. Anyhow, without further ado, Phil Woods. I'm not going to go into a big biography on Phil. A lot of times, folks will go through, the chronology of the life of a great musician. Suffice it to say that Phil was born, I think, in 1931. Excuse me, and passed in 2015. About 81 years old, I guess, or 80-something years old. And he played kind of right up to the end. He died of emphysema, lung issues. He smoked a lot. But what a great player. I'll talk a little bit about what I think about Phil's style and some things like that, but I'm not going to go into a big biography. What I will recommend buying, though, if you really want to find out about Phil Woods, there's a great book written by Ted Pankin and a foreword by Bill Charlap, a really great pianist who worked with Phil, is in this book, Life in E Flat. And it really goes through all of Phil's trials and tribulations from his early days all the way up to the very end, and has a lot of great quotes and a lot of great stories. And it's really a great book. Phil Woods, Life in E Flat. I bought this on Amazon, so it's in print, I believe. Great book. It'll take you through Phil's life. I'm not going to go through that. You can find out about Phil's life on Wikipedia and all over the place. But I'm going to more or less go through some recordings and talk about Phil. Phil got pigeonholed into being a Charlie Parker disciple, who a lot of people were. But if you listen to Phil's playing, and he was, but if you listen to Phil's playing over the years, Phil really grew. And though he still implemented a lot of bird sound, his styling and the flow of his lines and his playing really came into his own. I think his own style. A lot of people that don't know this. Phil was the soloist on the Billy Joel recording, Just the Way You Are. If you hear the alto solo in there, it's Phil Woods. I'll tell you a story about that through one of these quite funny story through one of these videos. But Phil has done it all. I mean, so many records as a sideman. I'm going to split this up into Phil's own work with his groups, and then talk a little bit about some recordings that he was a sideman on, and with some of the great people. So let's get into it. And these are in no chronological order. I pulled a bunch of records out. We're going to talk about some CDs. Let's talk about some early things first. And a lot of those I have on compact disc, unfortunately. I'd like to have the recordings, but I have them on CD. Pairing Off, the Phil Woods Septet. And this is done in 1956 or 58, sorry. And what a lineup. Phil Woods, Kenny Dorham, Donald Byrd, Tommy Flanagan, Watkins, and Philly Joe Jones, the great drummer, on Prestige. This is one of Phil's first records, and it was on Prestige Records. Worth having. Great players. You hear Phil really playing more like Parker, his styling on this. But all these early recordings are good. Another one he did with Red Garland called Sugan, Phil Woods with Red Garland Trio. And again, that was with Teddy Kotick. Phil worked with Teddy Kotick, the bass player, quite a bit in the early days on Prestige. Nick Stabilis on drums. Ray Copeland. When I do my trumpet video, Ray Copeland's going to get into the underappreciated, really great player, Ray Copeland on trumpet. But this is done in 1957, again on Prestige, but reissued a few years ago on compact disc. Sugan, S-U-G-A-N. I don't know what that means, but it's a really great recording. Copeland plays really good on this, as does Phil. I don't know that Phil ever made a bad record. I really don't. What a great player. A few things. He did an early recording, not an earlier recording, but he did a recording with Dizzy with his quintet. And in fact, Tom Harrell is on this, and it's the quintet with Hal Galper and Gilmore and Bill Goodwin. Phil eventually married Bill Goodwin's sister and had this quintet for many, many, many years. Few quintets stayed around as long as Phil's did. But this is Phil with Dizzy Gillespie. Dizzy Gillespie meets the Phil Woods Quintet. And this is on Timeless, the European label. Really good recording on Timeless. And Dizzy plays great on this. And again, Phil plays great. I'll save the rest of these till we get into some of the other things we're going to talk about here. But Phil, man, he made so many records. One of my favorite Phil Woods records has been reissued. It's an old Epic recording called the Warm Woods, the Phil Woods Quintet, Warm Woods on Epic. This is around. It's a really nice recording. Again, Stabilis is on drums, and a pianist named Bob Corwin, who Phil did 3 or 4, maybe 5 records with. Good player. Sonny Dallas on bass. I don't know who he is, but they're standards. A lot of standard tunes on this. Like Someone to Love is on this. Easy Living, In Your Own Sweet Way, the Brubeck tune. But a very good recording. The reissue. I don't know. It's very. I think it's probably 180 gram vinyl. It is around. I don't know that it's the cheapest record on the block these days. It's probably pretty high, but you can find this. It's a good record. It's one of Phil's. He plays a little differently on this. He doesn't have that real, quintet swinging type thing. It's a little more reserved, but really good playing, very lyrical playing on this record. Warm Woods on Epic. Phil recorded on a lot of different labels and some very kind of obscure labels, but he did record on some major labels as well. And here's, I think, this would be in my probably my top 3 favorite Phil Woods records, maybe number 2. This is a recording he did at the Showboat. I believe it's in Baltimore or somewhere in the Mid-Atlantic area near Washington, D.C. on RCA. It's a double record set. I've got 2 copies of this, one of which is in okay shape, one's in pretty good shape, and I just found a near mint copy. It's on the way. When I was doing some research on what to show for this video, I found one on Discogs. So they're around and they're relatively inexpensive on RCA. And Phil plays great. The quintet is just on fire on this recording. Harry Leahy plays guitar. Tom Harrell is not on this group, but I believe Malillo's on piano, Mike Malillo on piano, Leahy on guitar, Goodwin, Gilmore, and a percussionist. But it's in Silver Springs, Maryland. There we go. Live at the Showboat on RCA. Exceptional recording, great sounding recording. Bob Ludwig, the great master recording engineer, Bob Ludwig did the mastering on this. So you know it's good on the RCA Victor label. going going back about 1975, mid 70s. This is really, really great, great, great. Again, it might be my second favorite Phil Woods recording, live at the Showboat. My favorite Phil Woods record, and it's a very obscure record, and again on a label called Clean Cuts. It's a small label, but it's the quartet again with Gilmore, Malillo, Bill Goodwin, and I don't. I believe Harold's not on this. No, it's just a quartet. But it was done in Austin, Texas, and a very, very clean recording. Really great sounding recording. Really great sounding recording. And finally, we'll do two more. Here's another great recording on Concord. Concord Jazz really had some really good sounding records. And this was done in 1987. And it's Phil's quintet with Harold. I think I may have talked about this in another video, in Japan at the Fujitsu Jazz Festival, 1987, Volume 1. There is a Volume 2 that I'm looking for. Very good recording, very clean recording. I don't think Harold's playing is as good on this record as it is on some of the other records that he's on. He sounds a little like he was having a bad day on a couple tunes. But he did a recording on this where he's a soloist on Poor Butterfly. That is very soulful and very great playing. Tom's still with us. I don't know where he's living. Might be in California. And he's had some issues with depression and what have you. And he's still playing quite well. I heard him on a YouTube video lately, and he's still playing pretty well. But he plays great on Poor Butterfly. The other tunes, I'm not sure that he was one of his better days on this, but a bad day for Tom Harold is better than a lot of people's good days. Great record, great sounding record. These two records are tremendous. Phil Woods and Steve Gilmore in drums. A live recording. This is a great record. Get this record. It's great. And finally, we'll end this video with Integrity. This is done in Italy, and it's on an Italian, I believe an Italian label called Red Records. Great sounding record. It's a 2-record set. This may have been a Record Day issue, I'm not sure, but these are around as well on Red Records. And this is again the quintet that Phil had for many years, recorded in 1984. Hal Galper is on piano on this. I believe Hal Galper worked with this quintet prior to Mike Malillo. And then Gilmore and Goodwin on drums. It's it was made in Italy and released in 1985. But I think this is redone, and you can look for these on Discogs. Super record. It features, if I remember right, a bunch of really great tunes. A hefty tune, Repetition. The Duke Ellington Azure is on here. Phil's theme, Infant Eyes. What a great, Phil plays so great. That's the Wayne Shorter tune, Infant Eyes. I think he recorded that on See No Evil. Really great tune, and Phil plays exceptionally well on that record. And as you listen to these records, you'll hear him grow and get away from the bebop Charlie Parker stuff. He'll still play some of the licks here and there, but he really gets away from that and develops his own style. Great player, flowing lines, classically trained, studied clarinet in New York, I believe at Juilliard. but he wanted to play jazz, you know. And I'll tell you a funny story. So when I was 13 years old, 14 years old, which had to be in 19, now you're gonna know how old I am. It's okay. 1966, I believe it was, 67. I was just going into high school. And my mother asked me what I wanted for my birthday. And I said, well, I want to go see Phil Woods. This is 14 years old. He says, well, where is he playing? I said, in this club in Paterson, New Jersey. She goes, we're not going to Paterson. It's a bad neighborhood. I know what kind of people are going to be in that jazz club. And she wasn't wrong. But finally I pestered enough, and she took me in. So we get there, you know, and we're sitting close to the bandstand. And the cash register is going, smoky place, you know, seedy looking crowd. And Phil, of course, is playing great as always. And I guess he got upset because there was a lot of noise. People were talking, you know, cash registers going, and people weren't listening. And so I'm sitting there with my mother, and he stops the band, and he grabs the microphone, and he goes, what are you people doing? He goes, listen to me play. I'm a mother. And my mother, she says, do you know what that means? I said, of course not. But it was a funny story. But I got to see Phil when I was 14, and many, many times after that. Just a great player, Phil Woods. So that'll be enough for this video. We'll pick it up the next video with a couple more records coming up, and some things where Phil played with some other groups. And again, you know, I'm not going to go into the biography. You can find all about it, but you should read it. Read this book. It's a great book. Very entertaining book. A lot of great stories on this book, in this book. Life in E flat. There's also a video online. I'll try to link it if I can find it, with Phil, about an hour interview with some really great stories in there too. So check that out. And thank you again. Again, like, subscribe, all the buttons, and we'll see you again next time.